When you think of Saudi Arabia today, a country not even 100 years old, you probably imagine gleaming skyscrapers and unimaginable wealth. But only decades ago, this nation was a land of nomadic tribes struggling to survive. They transformed from a desert backwater to one of the richest powers on the global stage. Today, they control over $1.4 trillion in wealth and oversee 17% of the world's petroleum reserves. But here's the shocking truth. Rockefellers played a significant role in this massive growth. October 2nd, 2018, seemed like any other day for Jamal Khashoggi. The journalist was known for criticizing Saudi leadership and living in exile. He entered the Saudi consulate in Istanbul to collect documents for the wedding. He was never seen again. Turkish officials revealed he had been killed and dismembered. The Saudi government denied it for weeks before admitting he was killed. However, the kill order did not come from the top. Whether you believe the story or not, it is undeniable that Saudi Arabia has immense influence and power globally. An explosive story like Khashoggi's leaves those at the top relatively unscathed. The origins of this power go back to a time before oil was in the dreams of the Saud family. A deal was made in the deserts of Arabia hundreds of years ago that remains relevant today. In 1744, Mohammed bin Salman met Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab. One was a ruler, the other was a religious leader. Wahhab preached return to purist Islam, but ideas needed force to spread. Mohammed bin Salman wanted to expand territory but needed a cause that would rally people. They made a pact. Wahhab would provide religious legitimacy, and Al Saud family would lead the charge. In 1818, Ottoman forces crushed their rule and forced them into exile. But losing power was never the end. 6 years later, they returned and reclaimed their homeland. Abdulaziz bin Saud emerged as a leader with vision. In 1902, he stormed Riyadh and drove out rivals. By 1913, he had the entire Gulf Coast. By 1925, the holy city of Mecca was his. By 1932, he stood as undisputed king over land divided for centuries. Abdulaziz expanded rule through war and marriage. He married daughters from powerful tribes and clerical families. With 45 sons and at least 22 wives, he built a royal bloodline that has led Saudi Arabia ever since. But the kingdom knew it needed external alliances. It turned to the United States, who introduced it to Standard Oil. Standard Oil was the legacy of monopoly created by John D. Rockefeller. This partnership would reshape the kingdom's and the world's futures. Before oil, Saudi Arabia was a poor and isolated backwater. Land was harsh, and the economy barely survived. People were mainly nomads living off land. There were no industries, no major exports, no real wealth. For generations, the economy was primarily supported by revenue from pilgrimages. Millions of Muslims made their way to Mecca yearly, providing crucial support. Everything changed in 1933. A monumental agreement was signed between Saudi Arabia and the Standard Oil Company of California. Rockefeller was long gone, but the influence of his legacy companies was real. This partnership led to the creation of Aramco and set the stage for transformation. One drill, one strike, and the entire country was transformed. On March 3, 1938, deep in the sands of Dhahran, an American oil well struck something massive. Beneath Saudi Arabia lay the largest petroleum reserve the world had ever seen. Rockefeller had died 1 year before, but his legacy companies were thriving. Saudis began constructing vital infrastructure. Roads, pipelines, and entire cities were built from the ground up. By 1939, Saudi oil reached the world. During World War II, no one could ignore Saudi Arabia's strategic location. The U.S. set up a critical airbase in Dhahran, gaining a foothold in the Middle East and control over vital trade routes. When war ended, the U.S. needed more oil than ever. Saudi Arabia had oil but needed security. Americans poured in. Engineers, oil executives, and military advisors, all to secure the oil supply. On the surface, it looked like a win-win. The U.S. got access to the world's most valuable oil fields, and Saudi Arabia got expertise and a steady flow of wealth. This caused serious internal tensions. Money flowing into royal coffers caused uncomfortable questions. Behind Saudi Arabia's wealth is a darker side. Islam emphasizes simplicity and warns against wasteful consumption. But the lifestyle of royals tells a different story. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman dropped $450 million on a single painting, the most expensive ever sold. A Saudi prince's $300 million chateau in France symbolizes the family's limitless wealth. While wealth concentrates at the top, many ordinary Saudis struggle. Between 2 and 4 million native Saudis survive on less than $530 per month, but there is almost no official data on poverty. Beyond extravagance, the royal family is no stranger to internal conflicts. Stories of missing princesses and forced abductions raise serious questions about what happens behind palace walls. After the discovery of oil in 1938, tension had built up between the US and Saudi Arabia that could not be bottled up for long. A landmark agreement had been signed, giving rise to the American-owned Aramco company. This was a concession agreement between the Saudi government and the Rockefeller-backed Standard Oil Company of California signed in 1933. But behind the scenes, tensions were rising. Traditional Saudis worried about foreign influence. The partnership was profitable but far from friendly. Running a kingdom was expensive. King's lavish lifestyle, public projects, and government expenses steadily drained the treasury. He looked to the oil company for more money, but Aramco resisted. The company argued contracts were fixed, costs were rising, and any sudden demands could disrupt operations. So he found another way. In November, Ibn Saud acted decisively. A new income tax decree appeared. Suddenly, half of Aramco's profits would now belong to the Saudi government. Aramco pushed back, saying their 1933 agreement did not mention anything like this. For 2 months, negotiations went back and forth. They pointed out that Standard Oil Company, which was one of Aramco's owners, had agreed to a 50-50 profit split with Venezuela 5 years earlier. If they could do that with Venezuela, then why not the same with Saudi Arabia? Davis knew he had little choice. Pressure had been mounting for months. So he offered a clear deal, a straight 50-50 profit split. As a result, King's share of profits surged to $90 million in 1950. This was a significant increase from only $60 million he would have received under the old 34-cent per barrel royalty system. The US had no intention of losing grip on Saudi oil. In exchange for securing Saudi oil and preventing nationalization, President Harry Truman's administration introduced a golden gimmick. This policy granted American oil companies a tax break equal to 50% of their oil sales. It was a move that protected corporate profits while keeping US influence strong in the region. But this was not a one-time trick. It became strategy. Whenever a country with valuable resources moved towards nationalization, the US stepped in. They offered financial incentives, imposed sanctions, and backed regime changes. By the 1970s, Saudi Arabia had full control of its oil. But the question is, how did they pull this feat off? Saudi Arabia did not take control of oil in the way others did. While Libya, Iraq, and Iran snatched American assets, the Saudis did something different. They did it without sudden takeovers or messy conflicts. Instead, they negotiated very well. Step by step, they increased their stake in Aramco, starting with a 25% share increase in '73, 60% in '74, and by 1980, they owned it all. They called this gradual process participation, not nationalization, and it worked. In the 1960s, Saudi Arabia joined forces with Venezuela, Iraq, Iran, and Kuwait to form OPEC, designed to control oil production and stabilize prices. It started using vast reserves to influence supply and dictate global market trends. With OPEC, Saudi Arabia became a central figure in global oil politics. Saudi Arabia has 2 major advantages. First, it always keeps extra production capacity ready. If market needs more oil, it delivers. Second, it has flexibility to adjust production whenever prices start shifting. In 2023, they racked up 35% of OPEC's crude oil output, more than double what Iraq managed. Saudi Arabia's public investment fund is experiencing rapid expansion. By 2030, it is expected to hit a staggering $2 trillion in assets. Eventually, it will go from the 5th to the 2nd largest sovereign wealth fund in the world. They are betting big on the digital economy and making moves that could change global financial industries. And yet, despite futuristic ambitions, Saudi Arabia's wealth remains anchored to another 50-year-old pact it made with the US, one that turned oil into a golden chain, binding the kingdom to the dollar. For decades, oil and the US dollar have been inseparable. Since the 1970s, nearly every oil deal had been done in dollars, and that only made America's currency stronger. This petrodollar system guarantees that Saudi Arabia and the US stay financially tied. Deal locked in a system that forged the modern world. The US got a steady oil supply, and Saudi Arabia got advanced weapons and military protection. Every barrel sold was priced in US dollars. It forced countries to hold and trade in American currency. In return, Saudi Arabia pumped billions of profits back into US banks and treasury bonds. This was the foundation of the Petrodollar System. The murder of Jamal Khashoggi brought tensions to an all-time high. In the aftermath of the murder, Mohammed bin Salman realized he had a problem. He publicly denied any involvement with the journalist's murder. But public outrage was building, and becoming a diplomatic pariah was not in the Saudi government's plan. Mohammed bin Salman knew they had to change their image. Since then, focus has been on improving the kingdom's reputation, with sovereign wealth funds taking over soccer clubs, professional golf, and continued progress on the NEOM project. And yet, controversy is never far away. Despite trillions of dollars being poured into infrastructure and entertainment, the real cost is human. Laborers work in brutal and exploitative conditions, and the poor and migrants continue to pay the price for the country's ambition. For over a century, the House of Saud defied all odds. They have outwitted competitors for centuries in everything from tribal conflicts to oil negotiations. The House of Saud built a kingdom and a system that kept them in control. Even as world shifts away from oil, they are diversifying, making deals, and securing the future. As long as world needs oil, their influence will remain unshaken. But what happens when oil runs out? The House of Saud is taking a strategic view of the future and diversifying. But will it be enough? If this examination of how oil transformed a desert kingdom into a global power moved you, share it with someone who needs to understand how modern Saudi Arabia was built, and subscribe for more investigations into history and economics that shaped our world.